4 video essays have been analyzed and only 2 additional ones need to follow. Hello everyone and welcome to the 5th installment of deep searching and analyzing the Murkoff Account. If you like learning about Outlast related lore, as well as exploring potentially true theories in the history of the game, then I'd say this is the video for you. Prepare to expand your understanding. There are 6 comic books in total, each of them a labyrinth-like system that needs to be explored and mapped out. In this video, I'm going to be discussing Volume 5 of the comic books. During my thesis, I'm going to be explaining every single element that some may find difficult to understand. For example, if a specific event or location is mentioned by a character, I will give context behind what that individual said. However, the prerequisite of my synopsis will be the narration of the comic book. The reason why this will happen first is because it's for those who have never read it before. That will hopefully drop most of the confusion some may have. After these 2 steps have happened, I will give my personal theories on the comic book. My hypotheses will be based on unanswered questions or things mentioned that are not able to be calculated in a narrow perspective. Now that we got that out of the way, it's time for the video. I hope you enjoy the second to last layer.
The transnational Murkoff Corporation tirelessly pushes the frontier of scientific research and development. Partnering with the greatest minds of tomorrow, Murkoff expands the reach of every branch of scientific inquiry, including gene therapy, behavioral psychology, information technology, and medicine. In the event of mistake or oversight, the Murkoff Insurance Mitigation Department comes in to minimize economic fallout. Mitigation officers are damage control. They are not here to save lives or help people. They are here to make sure it doesn't cost the company any more than it has to. Arizona. He ain't gonna let us get away. Every step we take, the less power he got. We'll get to the wicked part of the world and God himself ain't even gonna be able to find us. Residence of Paul Marion. Do you know if Yeshua Hanastri was a real person, like in the Bible? Never heard of him. When's that book report due? Thursday. You're getting an early jump. Figured I'd be too beat to work on Wednesday. The transfusion and all. You didn't touch your dinner. I wasn't hungry. It's not like I need the extra calories. Alice, honey, that's crazy. You're a string bean. A beautiful string bean. Shut up, Dad. God. Hey, there's somebody messing with our mailbox. Hey! 360-0551 North, 1120-34 West. Your daughter is connected. FBI on-site hospital. My partner and I had agreed not to investigate the coordinates Simon Peacock had given us. Turns out I was lying. Arizona. Hey, Glick, it's Paul. Glick? Pauline? Can you hear me?
Hey, Paul, yeah. I hear you now. Where are you? It's noisy.
At the hospital. Sorry to interrupt you on a Sunday. Residence of Pauline Glick. You're not interrupting anything. I was just folding laundry, listening to Prairie Home Companion.
Good. Listen, I don't think I'm gonna make it into the office tomorrow. I have to spend some time with Alice.
No worries, we all need personal time. I rented the biggest, most jacked up all-terrain SUV they'd rent me, and it's still crapped out about 20 miles short of the coordinates. Fuck me, no service. I guess the heat in the sun got to me. Heavenly God. Dad? What's wrong? Are they out of hot chocolate? I was back in that night, 13 years ago, watching my wife die. Multiple perforations of the intestines spread throughout your wife's blood. Had to induce a coma in order to arrest progress. Internal bleeding. Surgery is no longer an option. Your wife is dead, Mr. Marion. I'm so sorry. Alice! I'm so sorry, honey. I didn't mean... What the fuck? We don't want no trouble, mister. I'm just gonna take your pistol. Who are you? Hey, take it easy. Jesus fucking Christ. Don't you take that name in vain. Safety's on. Alright, who are you? Who's the girl? And Jesus, how pregnant is she? I'm not gonna hurt you. You'll need help. I guess the shock got to me. When I woke up, it was full dark. I followed her trail for a couple miles. I kept seeing my dead wife. Joanne? Mm-hmm. That's all you got? Mm-hmm. I said I was seeing my dead wife. I heard you. It's the least crazy thing you've told me so far. Fair enough. So, by the time I'd caught up with the pregnant girl, she'd found a road and lucked onto a ride. Hey, wait! 2 pieces of luck. I managed to get the license plate number. My phone was back in range of signal.
Hey Glick, it's me.
You are in such deep shit.
I know.
You lied to me. You went off the reservation.
I actually think I might be on a reservation. Like Indians, or First Nations, or...
What the fuck are you doing, Paul? I fucked up.
Don't fuck yourself any deeper. I'm on my way.
In the morning, a family on their way to the Grand Canyon found me and took me to the hospital. Spill. Pauline Glick got to the hospital 6 hours after I did. I told her everything. She wasn't impressed. Okay, number 1, you work for Murkoff, not Simon Peacock. Number 2, you don't interfere with any ongoing experiments. We only enter the equation when the science is done and the side effects need mopping up. Shit, you don't even know if this is an experiment. And number 3, fuck you. You don't work without me. We're partners. You stupid motherfucker. So don't say you're sorry. I hate that. You want the silver lining to your shit show? I traced this license plate number on your palm. That pregnant girl's a patient in this hospital. Don't suppose you brought me a suit. I even brought you a tie. Hope yellow's alright. Your dead wife in the desert. You call it a vision, not a hallucination. It felt real. I could smell the hospital. I could smell my daughter. Like that little kid smell. It felt real. First rule in the Murkoff playbook is don't get high on your own product. Yeah, but I'm wondering if I really killed that kid. I'm wondering about that girl. The girl's real. She's on record here. But her pregnancy, what if it's psychosomatic? Like the woman at Mount Massive. Could there be a connection there? It's a healthy baby boy. Remarkably healthy, in fact, considering the state of the mother. She was unconscious when she arrived here. You don't know her name? We've got her on record as Jane Doe. What about brain injury? You said there were anomalies in the CT scan. The scan must have been corrupted. What looks like a lesion in the amygdala, but perfectly symmetrical. Damn's thing. Murkoff Rehabilitation Center. Miss Glick, is there more to your testimony? Yes, of course. Excuse me, I was just... The lesions in the girl's brain match the neutral scanning common to the morphogenic engine exposure, like the patient at Mount Massive. Could we see those brain scans? They're already off to the lab, but we have copies. Test results in the lab scans. The girl, evidence, all of it. This had become a matter of containment. We'd love to meet the patient. This is Jane Doe. She's been unconscious since she got here. But the little guy in here's been kicking up a storm. We stood by Jane Doe's beside for hours. Then Paul noticed something. Is that a tattoo on her chest? A globe. No wheels. Wheels within wheels. That's biblical. From the book of Ezekiel. Ezekiel! Oh, Papa! Papa! You can't have him, you can't! I'll die before I'll let you kill him. Fuck. I seen the messenger, and I know I ain't burdened with the enemy. My blood is true. I've sipped at the fountain and borne the pain and marks of salvation. You ain't gonna take my baby. You ain't! Ain't! She's having a seizure! Get a doctor! Doctor! It was then I was certain what we had found when we found Jane Doe. What had to be done. We lost her. We need to leave. Now. She's dead. Gone. There's nothing we could do. Minimal footprint. I realized too late I was operating above my security clearance. I hadn't figured out yet the trap Simon Peacock had led us into. What had been waiting for us out in the desert. Are you sure she was dead? Yeah. Case closed. It's sad. Still, I gotta get home. Alice has a transfusion tomorrow. I said I'd be there. You're a good dad. You always take care of your girl. Home again. Alice? You home? Alice? You work for us now. We still had to clean up that body Paul left in the desert. The boy. We grid searched a 40-mile radius surrounding his abandoned rental vehicle. We didn't find Dick. We never found out what happened to that body, if in fact it ever existed.
Before I start deep searching, I just would like to say I already discussed all the implications of page 2. In all the comic books, page 2 is the exact same. Anyway, let's get on with the research. Our story starts off in Arizona with two characters blindly running through the desert at night. The woman is named Anna Lee, the man, Paul. According to the Outlast wiki, Paul is the brother of Ethan, making him Anna Lee's uncle, once removed. Presumably they're coming from Temple Gate, just briefly escaping the clutches of the cult. Paul appears to be injured, but we don't know who inflicted this damage upon him. I have my own little theory about how this injury was obtained. However, I'll save that for the theory section of the video. During the escape, Annalise says, "He ain't gonna let us get away." I believe she's referring to Sullivan Noth. Obviously there's no evidence for this, but it just makes the most narrative sense out of any other possible explanation. We then transfer to Paul Marion's residence, where we see Allison Marion and Paul cleaning up after dinner. They have a little conversation about homework, with Allison mentioning that she needs to get her transfusion on Wednesday. This means that Allison can make occasional visits from the hospital after her experimental treatment. I personally thought she had to stay at the hospital indefinitely until she was finally cured of her rare blood disease. However, that doesn't appear to be the case. I guess the treatment is sort of like chemotherapy, where you only have to periodically go to the hospital to receive care. This could loosely imply that the blood disease Allison has potentially could be a form of cancer that's currently unknown in the Outlast universe. I wish I could elaborate beyond this point, but since I'm not a cancer expert, this possibility will have to be halted, at least on my end. Also, if Allison did have some type of rare blood cancer, I'm fairly certain the comic book would have mentioned the type, even if it was extremely rare. After they're done with their conversation, Allison notices a mysterious man rifling through the mailbox. Paul immediately runs toward the mysterious figure, but he sprints away. This is obviously Simon Peacock and his now signature ensemble. What I find a little weird is that Simon appears to be strongly fixated on the Marion family, without any prior information about them. My first guess was that Simon Peacock had some type of access to Murkoff documents relating to staff, but after thinking about it, I don't think that's the case anymore. Besides the fact that Murkoff has an iron grip on all documents, including top secret ones, if Simon had any type of incriminating evidence against the corporation, he wouldn't need to involve himself in any of the lives of the employees, let alone litigation officers. Otherwise, he would have published his findings and obliterated the company with the evidence. I believe he doesn't have any type of resource to utilize, and in fact, out of pure coincidence, chose Paul Marion when he went to Wayland Park's residence. After doing a bit more unscrupulous digging on Paul, Simon would have become immediately familiar with his life. This would include learning about Allison Marion and her treatment. Seeing this information as possible leverage, he now looks at Paul as a perfect entry token to access Murkoff from the inside, perhaps even planning to use his daughter in some type of maniacal way. Now I know what you're thinking, Michael, this is a goddamn theory, and sure, it could be considered as one, but I just believe that there's too much evidence to even consider that this is a hypothesis. Everything just seems to fit seamlessly together, so I'm just going to count it as a fact. After Paul reaches the mailbox, he discovers a piece of paper with coordinates and the message, "Your daughter is connected." Side note, the coordinates from issue 4 are different than this issue's coordinates. The original numbers start off as 360557N, and these numbers are 3600557N. There's obviously an extra 0 in these new coordinates. However, I'm going to treat this as a continuity error instead of a whole new location. Anyway, back on track. There are many different interpretations of the quote, "Your daughter is connected." This could refer to Allison's involvement as a patient, or perhaps Allison is being used by Murkoff for some nefarious reason. I'll explore most of the possibilities in the theory section. We continue to the FBI on-site hospital, where we are in the present. Paul tells the FBI agent that he and Pauline decided not to investigate the coordinates given by Simon Peacock. However, he went behind Pauline's back and investigated anyway. I believe Paul did this because he was curious about the coordinates that were given by Simon Peacock, as well as because he was fearing for his daughter's safety should Pauline find out and report his insubordination. Pages 6 to 13 are pretty self-explanatory, so I'm going to jump over to page 14. However, I would like to mention that on page 9, the reason why Paul's wife died was because she had the exact same blood disease Allison has. It's an unknown hereditary illness. Alright, on to page 14. Paul, covered in blood, calls Pauline to inform her on his situation and receive help. However, Pauline surprisingly already knows the logistics. I find this to be pretty intriguing considering she had no idea of Paul's plan originally. In the next section, I'll have a theory about this. On page 18, Paul and Pauline discover Annalise's tattoo resting on her chest. Hit with realization, Pauline makes the decision that she needs to kill Anna to contain the Templegate experiment from reaching the public. We then see the aftermath of the strangulation on page 20. I found this moment extremely sad in the case of Annalie and Pauline. For Anna, she died in vain and never ended up rescuing her baby from damnation and death. As for Pauline, although her actions make her borderline irredeemable, we can clearly see that she feels terrible about snuffing out the lives of a mother and her unborn child. If anything else, these events honestly invoke my curiosity. If she clearly has a soul, then why would she do such despicable things for the corporation? What are her motivations? Sadly, there is a distinct possibility that we will never find out. Paul then arrives at his house, but immediately discovers that his daughter was kidnapped. It's unknown if the kidnappers were affiliated with Simon Peacock, but it's definitely a possibility considering the beginning of the comic book. Simon is the only outside entity that knows of Paul's job circumstances. A human finger is found on the floor. We can only presume that it's Allison's finger. There are 2 more pages after this sequence, but they are self-explanatory. Now that we're done analyzing the comic book, it's time for my theories based on certain sections. How did Paul receive his injury? On page 3 of the comic book, when we witness Anna Lee and Paul running through the Arizona desert, we can see that Paul sustained an injury on his right side. This could have easily been a knife wound or some type of sharp penetrating object. However, I believe the injury was from Lard Byron. If Paul was stabbed from the front, then obviously blood would be coming from the front. But on page 10 and 11, we can clearly see that there is blood coming from Paul's back. The only way I can see this being possible is if Lard Byron shot an arrow toward Paul, striking him in the back and exiting cleanly through the front. Even though Lard was the leader of the Skuld, he still would have been loyal to Sullivan Noth because he wasn't a heretic. So he most likely did everything he could to prevent the Antichrist from escaping Temple Gate. With this motivation in mind, I believe he shot Paul but failed to kill him. You could say somebody stabbed Paul with a really long spike, but I believe, if that were the case, he would have been killed off by the attacker because of the intimate proximity. Was Paul and Anna Lee in an incestuous relationship? I personally don't believe that incest occurred between Paul and Anna Lee. Despite the fact that the 2 of them were being hunted down during the entire escape attempt, I think it would be against the Lord's wishes for one to fornicate with an individual who was a part of the same family. Keep in mind, even though these 2 act like heretics, they only found out that Anna Lee had to sacrifice her child hours prior to the escape attempt, not leaving any time for there to be coitus. I bring up the heretics because I do believe they would become incestuous, considering that orgy scene. I know this is more like disproving a theory, but I wanted to add it nonetheless. Does Allison Marion have anorexia? On page 4, Allison says to her father, "I wasn't hungry. It's not like I need the extra calories." Paul snaps back by saying, "Allison, honey, that's crazy. You're a string bean, a beautiful string bean." Perhaps because of the experimental treatment Allison is receiving from Murkoff, she has developed some type of eating disorder, possibly anorexia. As Paul pointed out, Allison is extremely thin, and since she is worried about extra calories, this could be considered her being paranoid about gaining weight. I do have to make this clear. If you or a loved one has an eating disorder, make sure to reach out to somebody you can trust. What does the quote, "Your daughter is connected," represent? On page 5, when Paul receives a scrap of paper with the Temple Gate coordinates, there is a little message saying, "Your daughter is connected." I believe this could mean Simon Peacock has information about Allison Marion's treatment and the true intentions behind Murkoff. What if the corporation is using Paul's daughter as a ground zero patient experiment? Or at the very least, what if they're collecting data and using that information to negatively affect a different individual? There's obviously no evidence for any of these claims, but I certainly wouldn't put it past Murkoff to do something like that. There is one more thing that's a bit anticlimactic. Simon could have just been foreshadowing the kidnapping that he would be involved with at the end of the comic book. Who knows for sure? Does Pauline direct porn during her free time? On page 6, when Paul talks to Pauline over the phone, we can clearly see Pauline and 2 other naked women in front of a camera. This could show that Pauline is some type of porn director in her spare time. Perhaps she likes to watch intimacy, knowing she could never experience such pleasures because of the corporation. Maybe Pauline knows if she experiences a connection with another person, that could be used against her if she decides to rebel, similar to Paul Marion's daughter and how she was used as leverage. Everybody, except for asexuals, has a sexual desire, so maybe I'm overthinking this scene. It's more than likely that Pauline just wants to experience some action, like practically every other human being. How did Pauline find out about Paul's insubordination? On page 14, Paul calls Pauline for assistance after he's ambushed by the other Paul. However, Pauline miraculously already knows where Paul is. How could this be? Well, what if Pauline was tasked to track Paul's movements? She clearly says, "You lied to me, you went off reservation." I believe this statement solidifies this theory. How could she possibly know Paul left anywhere without there being a tracker embedded in his clothing or on his phone? Here's a little side query that I found interesting in regards to when Pauline says, "You went off reservation." Could this mean Paul has native roots? If Pauline is referring to Paul's house from the beginning of the comic book, then I'd say so. Obviously, not all inhabitants of reservations are Native American, but it's still a big possibility that should be considered. Did Murkoff agents shave Annalee's hair? In Outlast 2, when Blake stumbles across Ethan, the father of Annalee, Blake describes Anna as having a haircut that resembles a boy's. Clearly, in the comic books, Anna is shown to have very long hair, so I was sort of confused putting 2 and 2 together. However, I thought of something that might explain the phenomenon. What if separate Murkoff agents arrived at the hospital where Annalee was murdered and shaved her hair? They could have done this to conceal her identity, although this wouldn't make that much sense considering nobody knew her identity in the first place. The obvious answer is that this is a continuity mistake, but I personally like to believe this was done for a reason. Congratulations, you made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching this video in its entirety. And I need to say before fully concluding the video that I apologize that I have not been uploading at all. It's been like 4 months, 3-4 months, and I will explain everything on, what is happening, why I've been gone for so long, along with some other few logistics. That's what I'm going to do in the next video. But anyway, I hope you had an amazing time while watching this video. It's definitely been a journey, and I hope to see every single one of you and new subscribers in the next video. Peace out.